If you grew up in the 1950s, you'll understand me right away. The world I knew then was simple, slower, and in many ways gentler than the one children know today. When I look at kids now, glued to screens or racing from one organized activity to another, I smile because they have wonders I could never have imagined. Yet at the same time, I hold on to my own memories, the games we played, the houses we lived in, the toys we treasured, the way neighbors looked out for each other. It was a different kind of childhood, one rooted in routines, rituals, and small pleasures that to us felt as big as a world. Let me take you back to those days, and along the way, let's notice how things have changed. Not for better or worse, but simply in the way each age leaves its mark on childhood. Home life in the 1950s versus today. Homes in the 1950s were warm in spirit, though sometimes drafty in structure. Central heating wasn't universal yet, and you might wake up on a winter morning to frosted windows and the smell of your mother cooking breakfast. The living room was the heart of the house, with a big radio cabinet and, if you were lucky, a black and white television set in a wooden console. Furniture was sturdy, made to last, and mothers polished it on Saturdays until it gleamed. Family dinners were not optional. They were the anchor of the day. Every evening we gathered around the table, father at the head, mother serving food, children passing dishes. You were expected to share what happened at school, listen to your elders, and clear your plate. It was less about the food and more about the ritual of belonging. Today, kids often eat dinner while scrolling on a phone, or families coordinate meals around busy schedules. Houses are warmer, larger, and more comfortable, but sometimes the togetherness feels harder to capture. Back then, the home felt like a small world unto itself, a place where you knew every corner, every creak of the floorboards. School days and learning classrooms in the 1950s had chalkboards, rows of desks, and maps of the world that still showed territories and countries whose names have since changed. Teachers wrote with chalk that squeaked, and you could smell the erasers thick with dust. Every morning began with the Pledge of Allegiance, hand over heart, and then arithmetic, spelling, or geography lessons. There were no smart boards, no tablets, no instant internet searches. If you wanted to know something, you turned to encyclopedias in the school library or asked your teacher. Film strip projectors clicked frame by frame as teachers narrated lessons, and sometimes you were trusted to turn the knob yourself, a little moment of responsibility that felt huge. Today's students can look up answers on Google in seconds, take classes online, and carry digital textbooks in their pockets. They learn faster, perhaps, and with more resources. Yet I remember the slower pace fondly. Learning wasn't about speed. It was about patience, curiosity, and the joy of finding an answer after real searching. Play and outdoor games, playtime was almost entirely outdoors. After school, children flooded the neighborhood streets, riding Schwinn bicycles with shiny chrome fenders, playing stickball with broom handles, or bouncing hula hoops round their waists. Kick the can, hopscotch, marbles, and jump rope filled long afternoons. Winter brought sledding down the nearest hill, mittens soaked and noses red, while summer meant running through sprinklers or catching fireflies in jars with holes poked in the lids. We built forts out of cardboard boxes, imagined ourselves as cowboys or astronauts, and returned home only when the streetlights flickered on. Modern children have more structured play, soccer practice, gymnastics lessons, play dates arranged by parents. Video games transport them into digital worlds where they can fly, build, and explore. But we had the real world, and it was enough. A vacant lot could become a battlefield, a castle, or a racetrack. We didn't need graphics. Our imaginations did the work. Toys and treasures of childhood. The toys of the 1950s were sturdy, simple, and endlessly cherished. Lionel electric trains circled the base of Christmas trees, their tiny whistles and lights captivating us for hours. Tonka trucks, made of real steel, could haul rocks and sand without breaking. Raggedy Ann dolls, Betsy Wetsy babies, and teddy bears sat in children's arms, worn soft with love. Board games like Candyland and Scrabble gathered families around a table, while jacks, yo-yos, and spinning tops occupied idle hands. And then there were fads like the hula hoop or the slinky, which could mesmerize for days. The Sears Wish Book catalog was our gateway to dreams. Its glossy pages dog-eared and marked with circles around the toys we hoped Santa might bring. Today, children unwrap PlayStations, iPads, and drones. Their toys connect to Wi-Fi, TalkBack, or simulate whole universes. They are thrilling, but sometimes fleeting. Last year's gadget is this year's outdated device. Our toys were simpler, but maybe because of that, they held our attention longer. Food, treats, and family tables. Food in the 1950s was often homemade. Mothers baked pies, roasted chickens, and prepared casseroles with Campbell's soup bases. Milk arrived in glass bottles on the doorstep, delivered by the milkman. Ice cream parlors sold cones for a nickel. Soda fountains served cherry cokes and banana splits, and diners offered cheeseburgers with fries for under $1. Children treasured small treats: a stick of bubble gum, a pack of baseball cards with brittle gum inside, or a root beer float on a hot day. Sunday dinners were feasts: roast beef, mashed potatoes, and apple pie cooling on the windowsill. Today's children live in a world of fast food, delivery apps, and endless snacks. They can order sushi, pizza, or smoothies with a tap on a screen. It's convenient, but less personal. We grew up with flavors tied to family hands, and the smell of something cooking was often the smell of love. Entertainment and media entertainment was an event. Families gathered around the radio for shows like The Lone Ranger or Dragnet. When television arrived, it was a marvel. Black and white images of Ed Sullivan or I Love Lucy flickered in the living room, and children sat cross-legged on the carpet, eyes wide. Saturday mornings meant cartoons, though only for a couple of hours, and movie theaters were havens where kids could spend an afternoon watching westerns or Disney films for 25 cents. Drive-in theaters brought movies under the stars, families huddled in cars with popcorn and sodas. Today, entertainment never ends. Streaming platforms serve up endless cartoons, YouTube channels update daily, and kids carry movies in their pockets. It's convenient and dazzling. Yet I smile remembering when entertainment felt scarce, when you waited all week for your favorite show, and the waiting made it sweeter. Technology of everyday life. Our technology was mechanical and tangible. Telephones were attached to the wall, and in many rural areas you shared a party line with neighbors, meaning if you picked up, you might hear Mrs. Johnson down the road talking to her sister. Writing letters was still the way to communicate over distance, and nothing beat the thrill of finding an envelope addressed to you in the mailbox. Typewriters clicked and dinged, adding machines spit out receipts, and carbon paper made duplicates with inky smudges. Automobiles were a source of pride. Chevrolets with sweeping fins, Fords with gleaming chrome, gas for 25 cents a gallon. Service station attendants filled your tank, checked your oil, and cleaned your windshield with a smile. Today's kids grow up with smartphones, instant messaging, and video calls. They swipe and tap more than they write. Technology now is fast, silent, and invisible. But sometimes I miss the click of the typewriter keys, the clatter of a rotary phone dial, and the slow magic of a letter arriving after days of travel. Holidays and special occasions. Holidays in the 1950s were handmade, heartfelt affairs. Christmas meant stringing popcorn and cranberries for the tree, decorating with shiny aluminum tinsel, and listening to Bing Crosby on the record player. Easter brought new Sunday clothes, egg hunts in the yard, and chocolate bunnies wrapped in foil. 4th of July meant fireworks in the park and sparklers waving in the night. New Year's Eve was spent with family, perhaps listening to Guy Lombardo on the radio or watching the ball drop in Times Square on a fuzzy television broadcast. Birthdays meant homemade cakes, neighborhood children playing pin the tail on the donkey, and simple but unforgettable joy. Today's celebrations are bigger, brighter, and often global. Fireworks televised worldwide, gifts ordered online and delivered overnight, parties with digital playlists and flashing lights. Yet the heart of celebration remains the same: gathering with loved ones, creating memories that endure. Travel and adventures. Travel in the 1950s often meant piling into the family station wagon for a Sunday drive just to see the countryside. Road trips to state parks or beaches meant stopping at roadside diners with jukeboxes glowing in the corner or motels with neon signs buzzing in the night. Trains still carried families across the country, their dining cars filled with the smell of coffee and turkey sandwiches. Air travel was glamorous, with stewardesses in crisp uniforms, but rare enough that most children only dreamed of flying. Today's kids fly cross-country for vacations, take cruises, or even travel abroad. GPS guides every turn, and hotels are booked online. Yet I still treasure the memory of unfolding a paper map, tracing routes with a finger, and feeling that the world was waiting just beyond the horizon. Community and friendship neighborhoods in the 1950s were extended families. Children roamed freely, knocking on doors to gather friends, inventing games until dusk. Parents didn't worry. They trusted the community. Neighbors borrowed sugar, exchanged recipes, and looked out for each other's children. Today, children often connect online, playing games with friends across the globe, chatting through headsets, or messaging through apps. Their communities are digital, boundless, and diverse. Ours was small, local, and deeply personal. Both kinds of friendships have their value, but I still feel lucky to have known the freedom of running barefoot through the grass, shouting across the block to friends who knew me not by my screen name, but by my face and my laughter, dreams and future visions. As children in the 1950s, our dreams were colored by the space age. We watched rocket launches, read comic books about astronauts, and imagined living on the moon. Boys wanted to be firemen, soldiers, or explorers. Girls dreamed of teaching, nursing, or raising families. Our heroes were visible, tangible. The neighborhood policeman, the local coach, the first man to orbit Earth. Today's children dream of coding video games, becoming YouTubers, traveling the world, or inventing apps. Their future is digital, fast, and global. Ours was mechanical, rooted in optimism, and tied to the promise that science and hard work could conquer any frontier. Conclusion: the lasting warmth of the 1950s. When I look back on my childhood in the 1950s, I don't see perfection. I see simplicity, warmth, and a sense of belonging that shaped who I became. The world today is faster, brighter, and more connected, and children have opportunities we couldn't have imagined. Yet there's something timeless in those old ways, in the sound of a typewriter, the smell of a Sunday roast, the glow of a Christmas tree lit with real glass bulbs, the laughter of children playing outside until the streetlights came on. The past and present aren't rivals. They are chapters in the same story. And while today's children live in a world of screens and instant everything, I will always carry with me the slower joys of the 1950s. A childhood built not on technology, but on imagination, community, and love. When I think back to my boyhood in the 1950s, I realize that the little details made life so rich, so vivid, and so full of warmth. It wasn't just about Christmas mornings or family dinners, though those were unforgettable. It was about the rhythm of everyday life, the way kids played, dressed, worked, and dreamed. And when I look at children today, my own grandchildren, for example, I can't help but marvel at how different their world is, yet how some echoes remain the same. Let me take you back once more to that simpler time where hope filled the air like the smell of fresh-cut grass, and where every small thing seemed like a treasure. Clothes and style of the 1950s. As a boy, I remember the pride of putting on my Sunday best. Clothes weren't disposable back then, they mattered. Boys wore crisp button-down shirts tucked neatly into belted slacks, while girls often wore dresses with petticoats that swished as they walked. Saddle shoes, penny loafers, and bobby socks were everywhere. Mothers ironed everything, even handkerchiefs and jeans. Stiff Levi's that had to be broken in were for after-school play, not for church or the classroom. Compare that to today. Children throw on sneakers that cost more than our families might spend on groceries for a week, and athleisure is perfectly acceptable even in semi-formal settings. Comfort rules and ironing is practically extinct. Kids change styles with the swipe of a credit card or a click on Amazon, while we have maybe 2 good pairs of shoes, carefully polished and repaired until they could no longer be worn. There was a dignity in that simplicity, and though I admit today's fabrics are more comfortable, I can't help but miss the look of neat collars and shiny Sunday shoes. Music and the birth of rock and roll. The music of the 1950s was a revolution, and we knew it even as kids. At first, we grew up on the sounds of swing and crooners. Perry Como, Frank Sinatra, and Doris Day played on the big wooden console radio in the living room. But then came the explosion. Elvis Presley shook his hips on national television in 1956, and suddenly the world felt charged with new energy. Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Buddy Holly, they didn't just sing, they ignited something inside us. We bought 45 RPM records for under $1, slipping them onto turntables and dancing in basements or at school socials. Music wasn't background noise, it was an event. The jukebox at the local diner glowed like a neon shrine, offering 3 plays for a quarter. Now I look at kids with earbuds in, streaming endless playlists on Spotify or TikTok snippets. They have instant access to millions of songs. And while I envy that abundance, I think we cherished music more deeply because we had to seek it out, save our pennies for it, and share it with friends face to face. Comics, books, and magazines. Long before Marvel movies conquered the box office, we had comic books, and they were pure magic. Superman soared through the pages, Batman patrolled Gotham, and Archie and Jughead lived out teenage drama in a simpler world. For a dime, you could disappear into those colorful panels, sprawled out on the living room rug or hidden under the covers with a flashlight. Magazines shaped our imaginations, too. Life magazine brought the world into our homes with glossy spreads of presidents, movie stars, and faraway places. The Sears catalog wasn't just for shopping. It was a dream book. We'd dog-eared a toy section before Christmas, staring at Lionel trains, Tonka trucks, and Shirley Temple dolls, imagining what might appear under the tree. Today's kids swipe on tablets, reading e-comics, or watching endless superhero films. They got special effects we could never imagine. But I sometimes wonder if they lose a little of that thrill of turning a page, smelling the ink, and carrying a rolled-up comic in a back pocket until it was soft as cloth. Sports and games baseball was king in the 1950s. Kids played stickball in the streets, little league teams sprouted in small towns, and heroes like Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays felt larger than life. We'd listen to games on scratchy radios, the announcer's voice painting pictures more vivid than any television broadcast. Summer afternoons were measured by innings, and a well-worn glove was the mark of a boy's pride. We also had marbles, hopscotch, jacks, and jump ropes. Kick-the-can filled twilight hours, while roller skates with metal wheels clattered on sidewalks. Now, children train in specialized sports programs, wear branded uniforms, and travel to tournaments. They watch games on giant HD screens and follow stats on apps. Some don't play outside at all, preferring esports or video games. The joy is still there, but I treasure the freedom of those unstructured summer nights, playing until the street lights flickered on and we knew it was time to head home. Teen culture emerging. The 1950s saw the rise of the teenager as a cultural force. Soda shops and diners were our hangouts, with jukeboxes playing the latest hits, while waitresses delivered burgers and root beer floats. Drive-in theaters were magical, watching a double feature from the back seat of your parents' car, fireflies dancing outside the windows. Dating was simpler, too. A shared milkshake or a spin around a dance floor at the school gym could set hearts racing. Compare that with today's teens, glued to their phones, swiping on dating apps or chatting on social media instead of talking across a booth. They've got instant messaging, but I wonder if they feel the same butterflies we did when you finally worked up the courage to hold someone's hand in the flickering light of a drive-in movie. Summer camps and the outdoors. Summers often meant camp, Boy Scouts, church retreats, or just rustic getaways by the lake. We learned to paddle canoes, roast marshmallows, sing songs around a fire, and tell ghost stories that gave us goosebumps. Days were spent hiking and swimming, nights under the stars with crickets chirping like a lullaby. Today's kids go to summer camps too, but many involve coding, robotics, or academic enrichment. They have air-conditioned cabins and Wi-Fi, while we considered it luxury if the outhouse wasn't too far from the tent. Still, I believe the spirit is the same. That magical feeling of independence, of discovering yourself away from parents, surrounded by friends and nature. First, jobs and responsibility. By 12 or 13, many of us had our first jobs. Paper routes were the classic. Waking at dawn, slinging newspapers into front yards from a heavy canvas bag. Others mowed lawns, shoveled snow, or worked part-time at corner stores. You didn't earn much, but you learned responsibility, pride, and the thrill of jingling coins in your pocket. Kids today might babysit or do online tutoring, but fewer have those neighborhood jobs. Many parents prefer organized activities over child labor, and safety concerns keep kids closer to home. Still, I believe there's value in that early taste of work, in realizing you could contribute and stand a little taller because of it. Shopping and the dime store, stepping into Woolworth's five and dime was like entering Aladdin's cave. Counters overflowed with candy, toys, sewing supplies, and records. For a nickel, you could buy a root beer float at the lunch counter. Glass cases displayed treasures that felt just within reach, if only you saved enough allowance. Today's children scroll through Amazon, where anything can arrive at the door within a day. Convenience is unmatched, but the magic of wandering aisles, smelling fresh popcorn, and tugging at your mother's sleeve for a nickel toy is something online shopping can't capture. Television and advertising at television became the hearth of the 1950s household. Programs like The Lone Ranger, Leave It to Beaver, and I Love Lucy shaped our evenings. Commercials were part of the charm. Jingles for Coca-Cola, Chevrolet, or Kellogg's cereals that we'd hum the next day at school. By the late 50s, some families even had color sets, and seeing a Western in blazing hues felt like a miracle. Kids today can stream entire seasons on demand, skip commercials, and watch on tablets in their bedrooms. They have more choice than we could dream of, but we had something they may not: the excitement of gathering as a family around a single glowing screen, sharing laughter and awe in real time. Events and milestones through a child's eyes. The world of the 1950s wasn't without its great events, and even as children, we felt their impact. We remember the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II in 1953, shown in magazines and newsreels. Disneyland opened in 1955, and though few of us could go, the images of a castle rising from California soil fired our imaginations. In 1957, Sputnik streaked across the sky, and suddenly we gazed upward with wonder and curiosity. Today's children witness space rockets land themselves, watch live feeds from Mars rovers, and FaceTime with relatives across the globe. They have more access to history in the making than we ever did. But for us, those singular moments, watching a grainy newsreel or gazing at a new amusement park through the pages of life, were enough to make us believe the future was limitless. Well, let's do final reflections. When I think of children now, my grandchildren with their tablets, video calls, and instant everything, I don't envy them so much as I worry that some of the small, slow joys have slipped away. They have more comfort, more entertainment, more access to the world than we ever dreamed of. But we had time. We had neighborhoods that felt safe, long summer evenings outdoors, and the wonder of small luxuries. Both eras have their gifts. The 1950s taught us patience, resilience, and joy in simple things. Today teaches adaptability and connection across distance. Maybe the real lesson is that childhood always has its magic. It just takes a different shape depending on the time. And so, when I close my eyes and drift back to those saddle shoes, jukeboxes, and paper routes, I smile. Not because it was better, not because today is worse, but because those memories remind me that joy is timeless, no matter the decade.